What's up, gangsters? I just woke up from a nap, which means that I'm mostly incoherent. And it's probably not the best time to do a video, but what the hell? I gotta get it done. This is gonna be part one of another one of these two-part build review things, which I haven't done nearly enough of this year because I just haven't been finishing a lot of projects. But this one's gotta get done. This is gonna be about the belkits 1/24th scale Ford Fiesta WRC car, which is pretty cool. I wish I could say the same thing about the kit. Yeah, so I don't want this video to be super long, which means that I don't have a lot of time to say all the mean things that I am probably going to end up saying about this thing. So we better get right into it. Alright, so here we are, and as you can see, the box is kind of a jumble of stuff because, as is always the case, I don't start a build review until I'm already partway into it. So let's just, I'm not going to try and be organized. Let's just take this as stuff comes back out of the box. Now, this is the one of the decal sheets. You can see a bunch of decals have been removed from it, and that's because they are all parts of the interior. Now, I had been warned that the decals on these bell kit things were not good. I don't know yet. I don't know if I can really say that I think they're good or bad. I mean, I don't feel like they've been terrible, honestly. All the ones that I've been using so far have been the little bitty ones, you know, for small labels and placards and logos and things on the interior. And honestly, I don't feel like they've been bad. I've been, using good decal setting solutions as I always do, and they've been okay. But the real, story, I guess, will come when I start applying them to the body shell that you can see right there. One thing I really do like, though, is that the colors are fantastic. I mean, even look at this, at that Red Bull logo. That's kind of got that metallic candy, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that's nice. You know, the printing is in register. The detail is really good. So, from that perspective, I don't think there's anything to complain about. I mean, these decals are good. I mean, look at all the colors in that little Michigan logo right there. Michelin logo. I mean, everything's in register. The printing is outstanding. So, but it did take quite a few applications of Solvaset to get them to lay down in a couple of spots. But that's that doesn't mean decals are bad. That's just pretty much a normal thing with a lot of decals. Okay, so let's take a look at what all we've got in here. Let's get it all out. This obviously is the chassis. It's almost completely assembled. Doesn't have any wheels on it yet because I ran out of paint. So no big deal there. You can see the interior tub is all done, and we have lots to talk about there. It looks pretty cool, but it was not a lot of fun. Body shell, I got it out. It's got some primer on the inside of it because I needed a place to squirt some. So that's there, the aforementioned wheels. One of them's got some paint on it where I ran out, but they look nice. I mean, the detail's good. These are just primed. But that's got a few layers of MRP white on it, and I think that's going to be a really nice finish for them, just as is. I don't think those are going to need any kind of clear coat or anything, so that's pretty good. I got a piece of photo-etch here. This is where all the photo-etch buckles have come from, and this has been one of my beefs with this kit. This photo-etch fret is a really, really terrible design. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen one that's quite this bad. If you look at it, there's really hardly any room between the parts and the fret, which means that you can't even get I mean, it just barely is enough room for the tips of my Xuron photo-etch shears to fit in there and be able to clip those off. And you need those because this is stainless steel photo-etch, which means you're not going to use a knife blade. That's just not going to be a good plan. So super irritating design on the photo-etch fret. The other thing is you notice that there's a whole bunch of seatbelt action going on in this thing, as you would expect in a race car, because you have the option of decals, or they give you this blue nylon belt material, and I don't know why that would even be a choice. I mean, the nylon belt material really is pretty nice. It's nicely scaled and textured and colored. It's got a nice edge on it, and it's it's good. But you have to string it through the buckles on the photo-etch sheet, and this photo-etch fret is not really well designed where all of the buckles can be threaded while they're still on the fret. Let me explain what I mean here. So what you want to do is, the easiest way to thread buckles like this is to use the fret as the holder. Now that works okay with a buckle like that where the attachment is on the side, because you can just bend the buckle out from the fret like that. Hopefully the camera will focus there, and use that as your holder while you thread the belt through. Nothing better for holding those tiny little buckles. And that kind of works okay for that one piece right there. But for these, yeah, not at all, because where the fret is attached, that's where the belt has to go, obviously. So that's not going to work for you there. So that's a bit irritating. We'll give them like a 6 out of 10 on the photo-etch fret. But otherwise, the photo-etch is pretty nice. I mean, the details is good, and that's going to add a lot to the model. So that much, at least, you get good parts. I will say, however, that the buckles are ridiculously too wide for the belt material, and if you take a look in there, you can see what I mean. I mean, they're about 30% wider than they need to be, and that just looks a little bit silly. Okay, now, so let's go back to digging parts out of here. This is a sprue that's got some polycap type things on it. This is a little package of chrome type pieces, mirror reflectors, logos, neat little things like that. I mean, this really in a lot of ways is a multimedia kit. It's injection molded, so there's not any resin, but you've got photo etch, you've got vinyl parts, you've got all these other little detail things, and you've got these nice chrome parts on this sprue right here. You can see that looks pretty good. I have heard, I don't know if it's true, I may test this out, I have heard that Belkits actually does real nickel electroplate on their chrome. And if that's the case, that means that you cannot remove any of the plating using the age-old, bleach or oven cleaner or drain cleaner or whatever. Because normal kit plating is aluminum vacuum metallized plating. And the sodium hydroxide that's in, like oven cleaner will strip that off in a heartbeat, but not so much with nickel chrome. And so if that's what that is, then you wouldn't be able to remove that. Now, having said that, I don't know why you'd ever want to in the first place. I'm never a fan of removing chrome unless you just absolutely have to. And one of the reasons why you might need to do that is because you have things like sprue gates right in the middle of a visible area. And that obviously is not going to be the situation here, because they've very intelligently put the sprue gates in places where they're not going to be visible. I mean, that shouldn't be hard on a thing like this that just doesn't have much chrome. I mean, that is basically headlight reflectors and some and some parts of the rear bumper, I think. So it's not even really a big deal here, but it'll be interesting. I will do a test to see if you can strip that chrome off of there. But these look nice. I'm always a much bigger fan of kit chrome than of using one of the chrome imposter paints, because they just never do look as good as the real thing. And the more I look at this, the more I think it might be nickel, because it has a slightly different tone to it. You probably can't see this on camera, but it's a slightly different tone from the regular vacuum metallized aluminum stuff. Okay, now here's a sprue. You can see it's the only sprue that I have left, because most of the parts were for the interior. But this will give you a chance to see what one of my major beefs with this kit has been. So far, when you look at the well, let's finish looking at the box contents here for a second. Clear parts, sprue. Whoops. I don't know what just went flying out of there, but I'm going to have to find it. Anyway, clear parts. Don't know really what to say about them yet. They look like they're okay, but they're still in this plastic bag for now. I'm not going to take them out. You've got tires, nicely molded tread. So those look pretty good. You know, of course, they're vinyl. It is what it is. A dead June bug carcass, because it is that time of year. We get these little critters by the zillions right now. It's not June anymore, it's August. Anyway, these panels that you can see, I've already got them painted. We'll be talking about those before too long, because yeah, they're basically what caused me to stop working on this thing for the time being. Anyhow, also we've got, here is a large sheet of decals for the outside of the body. So anyhow, that's all that stuff. Throw all these things back in here and get back to talking about what's been happening so far as building the damn thing goes. And yeah, there's some things to talk about. In general, I found as I went through the assembly of the interior that the fit was fine. It was overall loose. It's not a Tamiya style tight tolerances sort of fit at all. And that's okay. I mean, I was prepared to give them about a about a 5. Well, I shouldn't say that yet. I was prepared to give them about an 8 on a scale of 10 in terms of engineering, because it was fine, it wasn't clever, but it wasn't bad. And I liked the fact that, with the sloppy fit, that everything did sort of fall together pretty easily. And what I mean is, like, for example, on all of the little gizmos that go in the interior of the thing, like, shift levers, fire extinguishers, seats, all that sort of stuff, they've got these holes in the chassis that you can see, and they're all clocked for the most part. You can see they've got like a flat on one side. That's good engineering, because it means that the parts can only go on one way, and the loose fit meant that they dropped in pretty easily. I didn't have anything that wouldn't fit because it was too tight or whatever. That was a non-issue. So at that point, as I built all the way up from the floor, I was prepared to say, okay, engineering on this is not bad. I mean, it goes together. Yeah. Then I got to the roll cage and the steering column and all that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. What I really did not appreciate, however, is the molding quality. When you look at the body shell, it looks really, really nice and crisp. I mean, everything seems to be well scaled. The panel lines, like the door joint is small and appropriately scaled. All of this stuff on the body is really crisp. And I guess, with a car model, I guess that's really where you should be putting all your money if you're a car kit manufacturer. But with what I know about injection molding, I feel confident in saying that they could have done a better job on the rest of it without making the thing, unprofitable. And it's just, it's a pet peeve of mine when model kit manufacturers cut corners to save a few dollars that I honestly would be more than happy to pay in terms of kit price if it saved me some time and energy, because a kit like this, you've got lots and lots of little parts, right? None of them are super, super tiny. They do a pretty good job of giving you an overall nice level of detail. Some of those boxes, for example, in the center console are separate parts, while some of them are molded in. Maybe I can get this turned in a way that will let you see it. Maybe get a little bit more light here. You can see like the gizmos that are on the center console for the drive shaft tunnel. Those are separate parts. That you can see they have decals on them. They look okay. The detail overall on this thing I felt like was a little bit soft. It just doesn't have the crispness of something like a Tamiya kit. You can see like when you look at things like the fire extinguisher, the detail is there, but it's just not all super, super crisp. And anybody who's never built a Tamiya kit is probably not going to be able to relate to that. But I guess, again, maybe it's appropriate for a car kit because, all of that is not going to be really that visible once it's covered up in the body shell and you've got the windows in and all the decals on the windows and all that sort of stuff. But still, you like to feel like you're working with something that's had a lot of care put into the design and manufacturing, and soft detail sort of, takes away from that. But that's not the real issue. The real issue is the molding quality. Every one of all of those little parts that I've been talking about needs attention if you care about such things because of parting line witnesses and flash. And that bit right there on the runner is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Now, obviously, you don't care about it if it's on the runner, but you do care about it when it's on a part like this. See those little nubs or goobers or whatever they are sticking out right there on that part? Yeah, those are going to show. You got to clean that up. All right? Things like, and they're kind of hard to see because of this silly white plastic. And I despise this stuff. I don't know why these car kit manufacturers just don't get that white plastic is terrible for being able to see flaws. Or maybe that is why they use it, because they don't want you to see the flaws. I don't know. But okay, look here at this mirror. Hopefully you can see that. See that parting line and that witness there? You've got to address that. It's going to show. And little parts like that are just a hassle to deal with. And there's not a lot of them left on this sprue, so it's kind of hard to really emphasize. So you look at that mirror on the top side there. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But anyway, all these little parts just become really tiresome to deal with. And honestly, because this is something that I'm kind of just doing as a diversion and not really something that I have a lot of emotion invested in, the truth is I didn't clean up a lot of the parts. So I may just basically be proving my point that it doesn't matter as much on these car kits because so much of it does in fact prove not to show. So I don't know, like for example, I didn't even bother removing the massive parting line witness from around the fire extinguisher because, yeah, you can't see it. No big deal. But where I did feel like you might be able to see it when you're looking through the windows is on all of these roll cage bars. And every one of them had a parting line witness running right through the middle of it. And you may be able to see some of the remnants of some of that where I did a pretty hasty job of basically just scraping it off with my hobby knife. I didn't sand any of them. You can see on the inside of that gusset there in that corner, you've got some of that. Yeah, there you can see in that junction right there, you can see some of what I'm talking about. Again, and maybe that's, pretty normal for car kits. I don't know. But for me, it was irritating. I felt like every little part would have needed attention if I really had, cared to deal with it. But it wasn't a huge priority for me. And it's hard for me to imagine that there aren't guys who are totally into these things who would, be wanting to make sure that every part looked its best, and they're going to end up, having to clean up all of them. So, yeah, I don't know. I was just not a big fan of that. I felt like the molding quality was poor. Now, back to the assembly, all right? So, yeah, when I got to the roll cage and the steering column, the honeymoon was definitely over. It did not go together all that well. These parts of the roll cage here, the sides, because you've got one big section here, one big section here, then you've got this cross piece inside here, then you've got this piece here, and then this piece here in the back. That is how that works. The side pieces are fine. I mean, they just plug into these holes in the bottom of the chassis. No big deal. But then when you go to bringing it all together, it becomes quite a challenge. And part of it is because the instructions are terrible, and I'll get to that in a second. But what you end up with is a situation where you've got these two side pieces in here, and you've got these belts in here, and you've got to somehow work this cross piece into all of that so that you get what you have here. Now, they tell you in the instructions not to glue these belts on here. They show you the belts being on here like this, but they say don't glue them yet, which didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time, because I'm like, well, how do you even have them on there if you haven't glued them? Well, in retrospect, what I would recommend anybody who's doing this kit do is put the belts on, leave these tail ends completely hanging loose, have them all secured on the seats, put the seats in, then come in and attach these side pieces and these parts of the roll cage, and then wrap these things around this crossbar back here at the end. And that'll make your life a lot easier. Now you can see, this is irritating, a little bit of what I mean by the fit and engineering not being so good. See how that has popped loose right there? Yeah, there is no positive locator for that. And the fit is obviously not great, or the alignment, whatever you want to call it. You can see it's supposed to mate with that, and that's popped loose there as well, which basically just tells me that the super glue I used to secure it, actually I used UV glue on that, and that just didn't hold. You can see that in the 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it's been since I did that, that has just popped loose. But it's not even close to being in the right location, so it's kind of no surprise, because, it requires some deformation to be where it's supposed to be, and that's going to put a lot of stress on that joint, and it's obviously going to have to be something stronger than what I glued it with. So yeah, that's super irritating. But that's basically the story with all this roll cage stuff. Just not good. But that was easy compared to installing the steering column, which I'm only really going to be able to show you when we get out the instruction sheet. But you can see that the steering column plugs into the dash or the firewall down there, and then has some braces that attach it to the roll cage right there. So let's get out the instruction sheet, and you can see how that's supposed to happen and how truly horrific this set of instructions is. But before I throw it back in the box, I won't say much about the chassis. This stuff all went together pretty quickly and pretty easily. It was not a big deal. Again, this fit was sloppy, you know, but it did go together okay. So, you know, it is what it is. None of that shows. You know, on a curbside car model, I don't know that you really can reasonably expect a whole lot more than that. All right, anyway, so here's the instruction sheet, and you're looking at the front of it thinking, oh, this is kind of nice. It's got this color picture, has this color call-out thing for your paints. That's not too bad. Well, when you get into it, yeah, all you have to do is turn the page to see, okay, yeah, they have obviously tried to use the CAD images to create the instructions. And that makes it doubly disappointing because they had all the information readily available to do a much, much better job than they did. Part of it is because of the way that they chose this black and white shading and tried to do it without any colors. That doesn't really help a lot. But the real problem is that they've tried to cram so much into a small instruction sheet. They've just not given you good visibility. Like, there's not anything that shows you how parts are supposed to look once they've been installed. And here's a really good example of what I'm talking about. Like right here, see this little thing here? That tells you you're going to need to drill a hole for that. It's a torsion bar is what it is. Oh, hang on, my phone. Anyway, that's a little torsion bar thing, and it's supposed to kind of go somewhere in here, and then that symbol right there means you're going to have to drill a hole for it, but they don't tell you exactly where. They don't tell you exactly how it looks. You know, even on this picture over here, well, that's the back end, but when you come over here to looking at the front end of the thing, they still, you know, at this point, you've gone from step 1, 2, 3, which they're not even numbered. But now at this point, that little torsion bar from this step should be appearing in this picture. And yeah, it's not. And I mean, trying to match these blobs of ink to the actual shapes in the white plastic just really became frustrating on some of them because they just don't do a good job of showing you what things are supposed to look like. Here's another example of that kind of crap. These vent hoses that go in the rear wheel wells. Yeah, you sort of can deduce, and if you're a car guy, you probably know this already, if you study these race cars, that these are going to end up, you know, coming out. Sorry, these are the front wheel wells. Anyway, that these are going to end up coming out near where the steering knuckles are, because that's where the brakes that those hoses are supposed to be flowing air to are located, right? Yeah, well, yeah, sort of, but you need to know that with a little more precision to make the assembly all work out the way it's supposed to. And again, they just don't show you what that looks like when it's done. You know, you kind of can tell in this picture that they're sort of down in there somewhere, but yeah, that's about all you get. That's the basic theme for these instructions. Just not well done at all. And then you get into things like, so this is where I was talking about with the seat belts, where they show you here all about how to make them and create them. And this is the tail end that I was talking about, which, you know, looks like it's supposed to be curled, and again, they don't really give you a way, they don't really show you exactly how that's supposed to happen. But when you get over here, then this is where they tell you don't, well, wait, where is it? Somewhere, previous page. I'll find it. Oh yeah, don't glue yet. They don't really tell you exactly how you're supposed to do this, but I'm thinking now and looking at it in retrospect that somehow you're supposed to make a loop here and secure that, and then slide this bar right here. Slide this bar. Well, you can't do that though, because this bar plugs into those holes. Yeah, there's just no way that you can put these seat belts. You can't create that loop on the end of them until you actually wrap them around this bar. So that's just silliness. I don't even know how this is exactly supposed to work. Yeah, anyway, it's been 3 weeks and it's bringing back all the frustration that I was experiencing when I built this. Here's another example, okay? When you are installing the spare tire. Looks pretty cool, right? Nice orange straps. Yeah, well, those orange straps are my own invention, because even though they show them here, they don't tell you anything about where these straps come from, what material to use. It's not included in the kit. You're on your own there, buddy. So what I ended up doing was I thought, well, hey, I've got some orange washi tape. That'll look pretty cool. Give me some contrast. It is definitely not the seatbelt straps. Don't make that mistake, because there is exactly enough seatbelt strap material for said seatbelts. So don't think that you're going to make this thing out of that stuff, because you won't have enough. At any rate, I ended up just making it out of tape. And yeah, it was a hassle to get it all sort of tied in that configuration there and make it, look realistic with the buckle and all that. What I would recommend doing, having now been through it, you can see how ridiculously wide that buckle is. What I would recommend doing is to yeah, these instructions don't give you any clue at all. What I would recommend doing is using the photo-etch loop that they show you here only on the back one where it might show, this one in the rear. For these other two, I would blow those off completely and enlarge the holes that they're supposed to plug into so that you can actually thread whatever strap material you choose through the holes. So what you would do is you would install the one in the rear, because that photo etch loop right there, you can see that it kind of fits underneath the back of that wheel. So what I would recommend you do is install that, at which point you've kind of got the thing, laying there with the straps kind of flopping around. Make sure that they're long enough to where the straps will go all the way through the holes you've made and actually feed through the bottom of the chassis. Okay, then install the wheel, then pull the straps tight and glue them here on the bottom. That way you can get them properly located and tensioned, and none of that's going to show. Okay, you can see that what I ended up doing was kind of just smushing it down in there and sort of gluing it to the side of the tire, which is terrible. I mean, that's probably going to pop loose a year from now and look like ass, but hey, it's going to be hard to see because it's all going to be enclosed with the body shell and all that stuff. But yeah, anyway, bad engineering, bad instructions on that part. Anyway, let's get to the thing that I really want to talk about with this particular part, which is this crap right here. This is the steering column that I was talking about, okay? They expect you to take the column and these braces and somehow miraculously glue them all together in the correct orientation. And none of these location features are very crisp to begin with, but they certainly are not monodirectional. In other words, they don't do anything to force these things to be in the correct orientation once they're assembled. They're just floating out there in space. And what you're this gets even sillier, okay? Here's what you're supposed to do, all right? Yeah. You're supposed to drill part in C2. Well, what is part C2? Part C2 is the firewall. Yeah. There is nothing there that tells you anything about where you're supposed to drill said hole. I guess you're just supposed to shut your eyes and guess. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I didn't even bother trying. You can see in there, what I did is I basically just chopped the locator pin off of the end of that and allowed that slanted surface to land wherever it was going to land, and then just slobbered some extra thin in there to get it glued to the firewall. And this whole assembly affair of this entire roll cage and steering column was an affair of doing it all while the joints were still soft but sort of stuck together with extra thin, so that you could move things around and stuff parts in there and kind of get them lined up and then get the other thing lined up and then hopefully get them all connected, which, yeah, you can see how well that worked out on this roll cage back here at the back, where that has now popped loose and is going to have to be repaired, yeah, whenever I get back to it, which honestly is not going to be anytime soon. But the good news is that in spite of all of this idiocy, that the whole interior tub is finished. Except, and this is what made me stop, these side panels here, okay? These door panels, whatever you want to call them, are now allegedly supposed to drop into these pins right here, supposed to drop into these two holes, and that is supposed to just, lay right up in there. Pretty as you please? Yeah, not even close. The cutouts right here for these roll cage bars, yeah, I'm not going to frustrate myself trying to show you, I don't think anyway, how far off they are, but yeah, it is certainly not going to just drop in. And I was so frustrated at that point. Well, maybe it is. Maybe I just got proven wrong, because I think I just assembled it. Let's see what happened there. Maybe I just got lucky. Look at that. It did. When I tried it the first time, it was not going. Nothing there was lining up, but it just did, actually. So maybe I was just too tired of working on it and too frustrated, and I just needed a break. But hey, awesome. You can see now at least that door panel is in there. That's the way it's supposed to go. And you can believe that I'm going to take a closer look at that to make sure it's good, and then I'm going to glue the damn thing. I'm going to call that good. Makes me wish I'd bought a lottery ticket today. Anyway, that's that. Those are that's what I've kind of found with this thing so far, and yeah. After talking about it for that long, I'm now ready to put it right back in the box. I took it out of and come back to it in a couple of months when I'm in a much better mood and ready to paint the body shell. Hopefully, that'll be more fun. Okay, so there you go. Part one of that little review. Yeah, and that just sort of encapsulated my whole experience with this kit so far. Just, yeah, kind of like the review, sloppy and frustrating. But it is what it is. And I'm sure that, you guys that build a lot of car models are probably like, dude, what are you whining about already? This maybe, I don't know. I mean, I haven't built very many car models ever. Even the only other one that I've completed in my little sojourn here on YouTube's model making community was the Tamiya Porsche 934, and it was a better kit than this one is by far, and it still had some massive frustrations for me in terms of the engineering. Like, my beef with it was that all the body trim, there's black rubber trim that runs all the way around the outside of a Porsche 934, was molded in with the body. So masking it off was a huge hassle when it came time to paint it. But still, overall, even with a couple of real engineering flaws on that kit, it was way better than this one was, just in terms of overall fit and engineering and certainly molding quality. But my understanding is that these bell kits are pretty sought after because they're pretty cool. I don't know, is that because they're supposed to be good kits, or because they're of a cool subject with these world rally cars that nobody else is doing? I don't know, but I can see why that part of it would be pretty compelling. I don't know, it's just a weird thing to me to look at the differences in the car modeling world and the military modeling world, because like, if you've watched any of my stuff, you may know that last year I built a 1/35th scale Russian utility truck called a Kraz 260 from a manufacturer called Tacom. That's somebody that you car model guys may not be familiar with at all. Anyway, as military models go, it also was terrible. Lots of engineering issues, lots of fit issues, the same kinds of frustrations that I have had so far with this thing. But when you compare this 1/35th scale truck to pretty much everything I've experienced in car modeling world, the level of detail, like the parts count, the fidelity of the whole thing was still far better than pretty much every car model kit that I've ever seen. So I don't know. I hate to say this is probably going to earn me some hate, but it's almost like there's a different level of expectations or standards or whatever you want to call it in the car modeling world that may be a little lower for whatever reason than what you find in the military modeling world. Because if you compare something like this to a Tamiya airplane model kit, for example, that's where all my hate's coming from. So I don't know, maybe it's just that I'm spoiled and this is really what the wider world of model kits looks like, and the fact that I really build a lot of Tamiya aircraft model kits has just given me a flawed perspective. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. What I do hope is that when I come back to this thing later on, whenever that is, and all I really have to focus on is finishing the body, that it will be more fun and it'll come out good. So anyway, we'll see you then with part 2. As always, I appreciate you. As always, I appreciate you watching. Much love.